So my presentation
Vintage people.
my presentation was on Plato's Utopia, and basically Plato's Utopia is like the perfect city, perfect place. And in the books, there's a total of 11 books with a little bit of like sub books. So in the first book, there are three men speaking about laws and what and how they're supposed to be and what kind of laws they're supposed to have in order for it to be perfect. So there's an Athenian whose name is unknown, Megallus the Spartan, and Cleinias a Cretan. The books speak of laws, and that are laws are supposed to promote true happiness of all citizens, and the people need to be virtuous and happy. But like they really don't go into being virtuous until later on in the books. The first one is just kind of like a brief overview of what the whole presentation is about. But in order for the laws to work, everyone has to be a virtuous citizen, and like everyone has to be happy and virtuous for the laws to work. And then the Athenian says that people need to resist pleasure and pain to be virtuous. So they can't just they have to resist what they like and resist it's just resisting a lot of what you like. It's kind of like dying to self, basically, dying to what you want.
Kind of, but virtue for them is more self-discipline. Not so much as avoiding it, but to control it, not to go into excess.
So like not having too much food,
right.
the 7 deadly sins.
No, right. That's very similar. And he is the first to publicly write about a utopian. So when we think of utopia, it's these ideas that bring perfect society. Okay.
And in the second book, the Athenian says education is training a child to feel pleasure and pain, love and hate correctly before he can understand laws. So it goes back to the point of what Ms. Alvarado said, like having self-discipline and controlling your desires and how much you want, how much you can pleasure yourself. Oh, how much? Yeah, sort of like that. It sounded kind of weird. And then like the second book focuses a little bit on education, how to teach the children, they promote a lot of musical education in all these books, and I'm guessing it's like music, but a lot of other things like kind of other classes that we take easily, like dance or music, choir. That's the type of education that they focus on here. And the Athenian says that no man will do anything willingly unless it involves more pleasure than pain. And it's basically like human nature. We don't want to do anything that's gonna hurt us. We want to do something that's gonna feel good for us. And how it's just gonna benefit us more than it hurts us. And the third book, book 3, is mainly states the origins of government. Like it kind of tells you like how government started and how it's supposed to be run. The Athenian likes the Spartan constitution, which saved it from corruption. So the Athenian is just saying like, okay, we need to have some sort of constitution so one person doesn't have all the power. And then later in the books, Plato says that one person needs to have all the power, needs to be the philosophy king. But then in the discussion, it focuses on destructive forces of ignorance, and in it, the Athenian states that power can't be entrusted on one individual because of corruption. Because if the power is on one person, then the person can easily be corrupted and to be pushed into different ways of like it's like the government of today. If you're like you can promise certain people things if they want to help your campaign. Like you can promise if a person has a lot of money and you want it to help your campaign, you can promise it. You can promise the money, and in return it'll help your campaign. So that's why the Athenian says you can't entrust one person to have all the power, because it'll lead to corruption. In book 4, the Athenian says that the best way to have a good institution, and basically institution is like school, is that it needs to be ruled by a good tyrant. Or not school, like a civilized, like a city in general. It needs to be ruled by a good tyrant. And a tyrant needs to be like God, because the best ruler is God.
So this tyrant at this time, they're not talking about something negative. It just means absolute power.
Like a leader.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In which book, 4 or 5?
4. Book 4. And then it's just there needs to be a ruler like God, and it needs to be they need to be really stern. Like it says in, I think it's the Prince, that it's better to be feared than to be liked, because if you're feared, it's more, you have more control over people, and that's what it's saying here, that you need to be like God, because if you're like God, then people fear you, and they are scared of you, so they listen to you. And in book 5, it says that to honor one's soul is to follow virtue and in general good things. So for them, like Michelle Rado said, a lot of it is just self-discipline and knowing what you like and knowing what you don't like. And then you have to take care of one's body. Then it kind of has like a hierarchy of needs, like what you need to do in order to become a virtuous citizen. You have to take care of your body, then take care of your money, and then it goes on to with other steps, but those are the main 3 steps that he was talking about. It's those steps in like smaller steps, like taking care of your body, going to the doctor, and then after the financial stuff, it was taking care of your family. But I forgot to put that one in there. They talk about laws so they can create a new perfect city. After the books, it breaks into sections. So after it, that's what I was talking about, the sub books. It goes from book 5, and then from book 5 it breaks into little sections of kind of smaller books. And they all talk about the same thing of following virtue and just going into more detail. And the perfect city is just the utopia. So in the parts that it was breaking up to, in the part 3, is about laws being in relation to the republic. The republic is just like a city. The republic is Plato's idea of the best city. So it's just a utopia. Some philosophers say that Plato thought the city of the republic was impossible because it faces challenges. And it goes back to the leader, that it has to be a tyrant it has to be a good tyrant that has to be led, and that it can't be just on one. The power can't be on one person, because it'll be easily corrupted. Plato says that following laws is impossible due to human nature, and it's kind of like the things that we say, rules are meant to be broken. That's kind of what Plato's saying here. We can't follow laws because it's just our human nature. We can't change it. And then that was his first challenge, and his second challenge is that we want an explanation for everything. Even if it's lied to us, we still want an explanation. It's just like it goes back to human nature. They say that the republic can't have too much power because it needs to endorse a community of property, women and children, to make the city as unified as possible. As basically like communism. We need to it's more of the group than individual.
But it's not full communism, it'd be socialism.
Yeah, it focuses on more group than individual.
And so that you guys, the people would still have property, but it's very socialist. Okay, you'd still have money and all that. His philosopher king is a great manipulator, a great liar. Okay, but the people don't know that. They just need to know that they got to find who the philosopher is. Once the philosopher's there, even when you break the rules, you're still in line with what you're still manipulating. Because that's what he means by you have to understand human nature. So even when you break the rules and you think you're a rebel, you're still following the culture. Or you could foresee that and use it for their advantage. Okay, so pause it real quick.
I always only know.
Maybe I.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. If you do figure it out, then that's a good thing.
Part 4 talks about how much people should have in a city. It says enough for a comfortable life, but not luxurious. So he's saying that they need to have it's like very socialist. You need to have just what you need, but you can't have too much, because then we go into capitalism and it's just not good for the society. And they have to have control of a population of 5,040 people. That if it gets too populated, then it'll throw off the whole balance and it'll be bad for the entire city. And it won't be perfect anymore because you threw off the balance. And it's like Mr. Alvarado said right now. If you're throwing off the balance, they have to get rid of you. There has to be restrictions on how they use the land, like very socialist. This person needs to farm. This person needs to make clothes, and it's just the ruler has to have control over everything. There needs to be slaves. There needs to be a slave population but not other populations that are citizens. Like they do need to have slaves so they can work the lands, but they can't. All the slaves can't make up the whole population because then there wouldn't be any room for citizens. Here they say that women can participate in elections and hold political office. This is probably one of the first times that they say, and I think it's the only time that they mention it. But that women can participate, but they also need to be virtuous women.
So remember, the one in control is a tyrant.
Yeah.
So if they're in politics, it don't matter. And so all these movies that you've seen, I can't remember.
But pause it.
Yeah.
In part 4, they also say that there needs to be kind of like a council, like the council members, but it's not really gonna matter because they have a tyrant that's gonna make the final decision. And they say that the assembly is the main electoral authority, but it's gonna be the tyrant making the
It
last
sounds
decision.
very similar to China right now. China got closer to a dictator this past week. Yeah. Yeah.
In part 5, they talk about laws, and now Plato starts to get involved later on in these books, and now he's starting to get involved. And he says for there to be good laws, there needs to be good lawgivers. So in order for a law to be good, the person saying the law or the person giving the law has to be good too. Have to follow the law, not just like make it up. The people need to be persuaded and not make it feel like they're following a law. So it's like the philosophy. It's like the philosophy king they have to be good liars, make it feel like they're not doing anything, but really they're controlling everything. The lawgiver must be a teacher and teach what is really fine, just, and good. So it needs to, like being a teacher too is like being a liar. They can teach you in however way they want, just so they can control you. And then they come back to musical education again, just to help the society. And it needs to be, we all need to have like some sort of musical education, and it doesn't all have to be in the same thing, but it all has to do something with music, like dancing and playing an instrument. And there needs to be a grasp or sense of basic ethic principles to help the city and its laws. So we all need to have ethics, and but not our ethics, the ethics of the tyrant. And in part 6, that there needs to be a nocturnal, like kind of like a secret council, kind of like Hitler's secret police. That's what kind of needs to be here. And it's basically saying they got to get rid of all the bad people, all the people that don't follow what the tyrant is saying, and just take them out of society and fill them in with someone who's gonna listen. And that the nocturnal council needs to have a great, if not unlimited, political power. It's basically like they need to be able to do basically whatever they want. And then the nocturnal council just needs to be teachers and set the rules in that they're basically like the highest. Below the tyrant, the nocturnal council, the secret police are the second highest. Because
can you pause it real quick? So both that.
In part 7, the goals of laws is to create citizens who possess virtue. So, like he said, but in a couple of parts before, the lawgivers have to be good teachers. But they also have to be the kind of laws that they want, or the kind of laws that need to be for there to be a perfect utopia. That virtue is whatever virtue that is what the tyrant is teaching them. The book states that everyone has to be well educated because those who are educated are good. And that sounds like the America today, because all we have is society pressuring the young people to get educated because that's the only way that we're gonna get to things in life, but it doesn't always have to be that way because there are some cases where people that are not educated end up doing good for themselves.
Teachers,
Coach Carrillo yells for everything. That's what.
And then like we all need to have an education, that's what Plato's saying, further to be a perfect utopia. And in the education, like he said before, like they said many times before, there's gonna be music and gymnastics. So like PE and choir, you need to have those in order to have good education. And then women need to do prenatal gymnastics like walking. That's like when you're in the womb, your mom needs to be doing something with exercise in order for you to grow up and be a